everyone, my name is Dr. Z. I am a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. If you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go ahead and make sure you do so that way you don't miss a video, and also you will be helping me and you will be helping everybody else find this valuable and completely free content. If you also don't yet follow me on Instagram, go ahead and also follow me on Instagram. Link is below. I show up there daily with additional tips, advice, guidance, and weekly Q&A for all of you. So please go ahead and support me on Instagram as well. Having said that, today's video is going to be discussing what may cause for individuals who identify as non-binary, and I will cover various non-binary identities, to experience an increase in self-doubt. Where that increase is coming from, and what it is telling you in regards to your gender identity. So let's start off by looking at non-binary identities. Non-binary today is considered an umbrella term, just like transgender is considered an umbrella term. And underneath that umbrella term, there are a ton of non-binary identities that all pretty much one way or another are not exclusively feel like at the end of the masculine or at the end of the feminine gender spectrum. We have identities, for example, such as agender, gender neutral, gender queer, gender fluid, demigender, androgynous, just to name a few underneath non-binary umbrella term. Now, non-binary, apart from being an umbrella term, is also an identity in its own right. People can't just call themselves non-binary without necessarily be as specific as, for example, I am agender or gender neutral or gender fluid. And I think that's where it can get really confusing, but one thing that tends to unify all non-binary identity is that they're not really exclusively masculine or feminine. So having said that, let's dig deeper into what may cause for individuals who are non-binary, again, I'm using it as a broad term, to experience and start feeling a lot of self-doubt in questioning your own identity, in questioning whether you feel valid, whether what you're actually experiencing is what you're experiencing. Self-doubt is very common. And self-doubt can lead to a lot of decision-making that a lot of times you don't want to end up doing. So here's what I see happens a lot and what tends to contribute a tremendous amount for individuals who are non-binary to start developing a lot of inner uncertainty, a lot of inner self-doubt. And that is when social dysphoria that you experience starts to exponentially go up. What is social dysphoria? Social dysphoria is experiencing distress between your gender and gender you were assigned at birth, and that distress is met and revolves around social circumstances. Think about social as environment. Think about social as current state of affairs. Politics and what politics do to gender diverse folks is a social environment. Also, the most commonly and the biggest one contributing to social dysphoria out of social environment for non-binary folks is going to be current and ongoing continuous societal concepts of only binary perceptions of gender. And as a result of those ongoing perceptions, people don't have signifiers, don't have really markers for what non-binary identity is in terms of a visual presentation. The truth is, they shouldn't have markers. Non-binary identity should not be something that is necessarily embodied in presentation. It should be your felt sense, and how you want to express that felt sense should be up to you. There's no such thing as one particular way to show up as non-binary. There's just, it's an identity that you feel, and then your presentation may also be very, very different and not necessarily exactly representative of your identity, right? So this is what causes one of the biggest increase in social dysphoria, is that when you identify as non-binary and you go out there in the world, and the world continues to gender you based on the way they perceive you. And if the world is accustomed to the perceptions of only male and female, when they look at you and the other gender you one or another, and you don't identify, you don't exclusively feel like you belong to one or another, that will start making you feel like you're invisible. It is going to start making you feel like you don't exist. When we feel like we don't exist, our confidence starts to suffer. When we feel like we don't exist, for a lot of you, your dysphoria is going to go up. And in this case, your social dysphoria is going to go up. Because chances are, when you are around people you love and care about, and people who support you, and when they are using proper pronouns and they totally get your identity, you probably feel pretty confident and comfortable. But when you are out there in social situations around people who don't know you, and especially when you do try to assert your pronouns and assert your gender identity, and people, in addition to not only clustering and clumping you into one of the two binary categories, they also don't respect your affirmation of yourself, because they themselves then additionally don't consider non-binary as even an identity. That becomes like an extra punch to your stomach, and that makes it that much more difficult. So dysphoria, social dysphoria, goes again exponentially up. Now, as much as I wish we lived in a world where nobody cares what others think about them, we're all social creatures. And it's not that a lot of people who are non-binary need people to care about them. But you know what? It's pretty hard to live a life when people completely misgender you on a daily basis. That will make it pretty difficult, and that will take a toll on anybody, no matter how confident they tend to feel. And that's where the challenge actually lies. So when dysphoria goes up, a lot of other things go up too, including your inner self-doubt. This is when you start to question yourself. Because when you go out there and people gender you as either male or female, and when you assert yourself, they don't really respect that, you start to really second guess yourself. The uncertainty goes up. You start wondering whether you got your gender identity right. You start to wonder what's going on with you, especially when people start getting argumentative with you about your identity, start to question what is non-binary. Is it even real identity? Can you explain more? All of that argumentation, all of the debate makes you self-doubt yourself. And when self-doubt goes up, it starts to really mess with your head. When it starts to mess with your head, your overall health starts to suffer. Your overall well-being starts to suffer. Your self-esteem suffers. Your confidence suffers. Isolation goes up. You want to isolate. You don't want to be in social situation, which completely makes sense. Not only social dysphoria goes up, but also social anxiety starts to show up and starts to go up. For those of you who experience depression, your depression may go up. Things start to accumulate and add up. And one of the biggest mistakes, and I've spoken about this before, that I see non-binary individuals make, is when they decide to step into medical or surgical treatment when they don't really themselves want it, when they don't really themselves experience physical dysphoria, but they step into those treatments because they figure that I just can't bear the social anxiety and social dysphoria anymore, and I might as well just make a decision to go towards one end of a spectrum or another and just deal with it. And I'm just going to pick the end of a spectrum that is at least the least challenging, the least painful for myself, and just going to move forward. And you know what? It sucks, and that shouldn't happen. Nobody should make a decision to step in the medical or surgical transition for those reasons. Medical and surgical transition should be there because you made a decision that that's going to affirm you, that's going to align you, not because it's going to push you closer to a particular spectrum so that society can just back off. Having said that, I also understand completely why that happens. So here's the thing. If you're watching this and you have lately experienced an increase in self-doubt because of increasing social dysphoria, first and foremost, I want you all to acknowledge that you're not crazy, you're not insecure, you're not lost in some kind of phase. You know who you are. Trust your feelings. Trust whatever feelings you had. Trust whatever inner knowing you had that guided you first and foremost to your gender identity. Again, it is very easy to start losing that inner trust when the whole world and so many things in the world are telling you to mistrust yourself. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to recognize that, look, you're not nuts. You're valid. Your identity is valid. I worked with gazillion of non-binary folks. And it just so happens that unfortunately you live currently in a world that still has a particular worldview and still has a long way to go to shift that worldview. It just, this is particular context, particular time during which you're existing. It just is. And yeah, it creates an unnecessary burden on you, but it doesn't make you any less valid. And it does not mean you don't know who you are. You do know who you are. All of you know who you are. So as much as it is difficult not to let that societal noise inside of your head, the best thing first you can do is if feeling socially increasing dysphoria, step away, not into isolation, but give yourself a little bit of a room to breathe, to just like step a little bit back, take time for yourself, come back to yourself, center yourself, get in touch with those feelings. The second best thing that you can do if you're experiencing increase in doubt as a result of increase in social dysphoria is to recognize that the chances, one of the other reasons why it might also be happening and making it so challenging for you is perhaps because you don't have a very good support network to begin with. Oftentimes, people who are already isolated and don't really have good friendships or good friends or allies, maybe a support group, maybe a therapist, maybe good family members who support and respect their identity, it becomes that much more challenging. So if you are in this position, I really encourage for you to put your time and energy into trying to build that support system around you. And it is absolutely buildable. You can do it. It is absolutely something that you can build for yourself. If your family is not supportive, your family is not the only family that can be your family. You can have a chosen family. There are allies online. There are LGBTQ groups online too, even if you live in an area where there is no local group. There are people like myself who are content creators who constantly put out content to support and uplift you. You're never, ever alone. You are alone if you start thinking you are alone, but the reality is that you are never alone. There are tons of individuals online, also non-binary identified, who are making content. Connect to those things, connect to those individuals. Start saturating and start surrounding yourself by things that uplift and support you. Those are the two most important things you can do. But I want you first and foremost again to notice that if your doubts are going up again about yourself, its chances, the high chance is because of social dysphoria going up too. Comment below, let me know if you experienced it, if you felt it, where you at right now if you identify as non-binary in terms of your own center of security and confidence. And I will see you all next time. Goodbye.